Bro really is a one-trick pony. Bro really is. He's gonna Shockwave again. God, Shockwaves are so cheap, bro. Like, oh my God, that's all he knows how to do. Oh, how did he? Okay. Dang, bro is so bad at this game. Are you gonna Shockwave again, bro? That's actually so stupid. You got another Shockwave? Oh my God, bro. Oh my God.
Shockwave grenades have been a part of Fortnite's history for a very long time. This item was loved by most of the community, and at the time of its initial release, this item was very fun to use. But now in the year of 2026, it seems like the way people view Shockwaves has completely shifted. What once was a beloved item has now stirred up lots of controversy in the Fortnite community. But how could something like this happen? Are Shockwaves truly great from the game? And why now of all times are people debating whether these explosive grenades should be in the game? Hope you guys follow me as we talk about the rise and fall of Shockwave grenades. Shockwaves were previously added in Fortnite Chapter 1 on August 28th, 2018 and as early as Fortnite Season 5. But before I get to talk about Shockwave grenades, we have to talk about the Impulse grenade. These were released even before the Shockwave grenades on February 13th, 2018. They worked like Shockwaves but in a far more balanced state. You threw them down and you would get launched in the direction you were facing. What was good about the Impulse grenades is when you threw them, you had to be very strategic on how you landed, unlike the Shockwave grenades. The Impulse grenades were rewarded skill as you had to account for the fall damage upon landing. The Impulse grenade also couldn't break surrounding structures, but at the time that didn't really matter as people in 2018 couldn't even build to save their life. Now when the Shockwaves grenades were released, they were initially received very fondly. It didn't matter if you were a casual player or a sweaty player, Shockwaves were fun to use to fly around the map. Back in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the trickshotting community was at an all-time high. Using Shockwaves with all the other movement items like grapplers or drift boards were low-key fun and peak. It wasn't until around Chapter 2 and further on where better players started to use Shockwaves grenades to W-key more casual players. If you were smart enough to use the Shockwave grenades offensively, you can easily exploit into someone's box and hit them for a max pump shot. Back then, you were hated for using Shockwave grenades to kill other players easily. Now in 2026, the tables have turned. If you are more of a casual player and maybe are less skilled at the game, you probably use Shockwave grenades as your final getaway item. Someone hit you for 20 damage and you ran away. And if you're like me and you are better skilled at the game, you probably hate the fact the Shockwave grenades allow less skilled players to just run away at any given time. As of this season, Chapter 7 Season 1, the battle for whether or not Shockwave grenades should be in the game or not is being discussed everywhere. It all started with little old Nick K30 began ranting on Twitter about how he doesn't enjoy the presence of Shockwave grenades. He thinks that they're a bad addition to the loot pool, and while I personally kind of agree with Nick K30, people online are not critically thinking about this situation. I can understand why people like the Shockwave grenades, as they can be fun and cheap to use, but there are two sides to this community, the build and the zero build community. There should be a separation of loot pools in both builds and zero builds. Since we already have multiple movement items currently in the game like the wingsuit and the crash pads, it can feel like Shockwaves are much more superior than any mobility currently in the game. I think that in builds, the Shockwaves should be gone, since the ability for Shockwaves to break opponents' builds is way too cheap and overpowered. Shockwaves have a better place in zero builds, since you can't cover yourselves with builds if you're fighting in the open area. Plus, Shockwaves are just what makes zero build fun as a game mode and more enjoyable to play. There isn't much of a problem with them staying in zero builds as in builds. Also, I have to mention that Shockwaves are not in ranked and haven't been in ranked playlists for a while. On the release of the version 39.2 update, Shockwaves have just been removed in builds and zero builds. So it seems like Nick A30 maybe had to do something with Shockwaves being removed from the game. But do you think that content creators have an impact on what stays in the game and what gets removed? I think so, as we saw something like this when T-Proof played Fortnite and he hated the burst assault rifle, and guess what happened? It was removed shortly after T-Proof ranted about the burst being underwhelming. But to answer the question, Shockwaves have been in the base game for a while now. I think they definitely should stay in the game, at least in zero builds. because some of you guys in pubs Shockwave away after getting hit for only 20 damage. But honestly, it's not fully impossible to kill someone using Shockwaves. All you really have to do is just hit the player for most of their HP with an assault rifle, and if they Shockwave away with low HP, it's pretty easy to kill them out of the air. But the other problem with Shockwaves is that third parties happen way more often in builds due to Shockwaves being in the game. Or if you were like me and play ranked battle royale most of the time, you definitely don't care about this topic because Shockwaves aren't in ranked builds to begin with. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Do you think Shockwaves should stay in this game forever? I just had to make a video about this topic. I think this season's loot pool is currently in a good spot, and I don't want to see Fortnite sail the rest of this season. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day.